Thursday. Is it Thursday already? Damn. Thursday watch party here on the watch list. I'm JR. How you guys doing? What's going on? Really, what's really going on? Because there's some things that are going to be going on this upcoming weekend, and there's a lot of talk about what's going to be going on Saturday. I just want to get that off the way right from the beginning. I will go into more depth as we dive into this stream, but I feel like I jump around a little bit too much when I first come in here because I just dive in. But I want to say what's up. I didn't say hi to my nerds, all you folks that were here early. I did start the stream a couple, seconds, late. Not the main one, just the build up and the notification for it. So I'm glad you guys are here. I think more people notice it once the noon hour hits, and more folks start rolling in. There's a lot going on. I was trying to figure out ways I don't know, change the way I'm approaching this. I feel like I have long form versions of many of these stories and I break them down later. And there's so many things happening, and I find myself going, well, I have to skip that today because I only have an hour for this stream and I only have like 4 or 5 hours to really get ready before this. And it's so much pre planning and thoughts and research and reading and finding out all this stuff before I even get on that it's impossible to really get that deep into stuff. I might start shortening a couple of these down and get to more topics just because the sheer nature of the number of things that happen on a day-to-day basis in this country that's on the brink of absolute destruction, which again goes back to what's going to happen on Saturday in response to that destruction and this guy who wants to be a dictator and is implementing his fascism in the country. I don't know. I'm finding my way around this. We're damn near at the end of October as we're swinging into the back half of the month, and I feel like I don't know if the tide is shifting yet, or if enough people are beginning to realize just how devastating this is. Even the folks who are like, I mean, he's just joking around. I've been in a shit mood past couple days, just more fatigue, I guess, about what it is that we have to talk about and think about and analyze and push back on every day when people that really don't think that deep into it just go, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. So I needed something to cleanse the palate. Sometimes I'll open up my social media stream and all I see is negative stuff. Then I saw this. I wanted to share this with you guys because it put a smile on my face. And it also is very clear as to the kinds of people that say and do the right things in the face of these weaklings that really think they have the intimidation factor over most of us in this country. I want to show you guys this wonderful woman. I think it was some kind of immigration court area. I don't know exactly where this was, but she was confronted with some ICE agents, and they found out that they shouldn't have.
I wish you would. That's why y'all are a bunch of fucking criminals. I wish you would. I wish the fuck you would. Yes, the fuck you hit something there. Y'all a bunch of big pussies. Don't tell me calm down. Who the fuck is you? We don't like none of you. You okay? No, how can I be okay? You okay? Are you okay? I look like I'm okay? Don't come up in my face here because I hit hard. Fuck wrong with y'all? Try it. I wish you would. You try me and see what the fuck happened. Nigga, we angry. All of us angry out here. So don't think it's y'all alone. Who you telling get out of here? Why you telling me get out of here? You asked me a question and I'm answering you. Fuck wrong with you? Oh, stupid ass bitch. That's why you gotta hide your face. You wanna go to jail? You call me my mother, I can tell you anything. You wanna go to jail? Fuck wrong with you? You wanna hit me? Hit me, bitch. You ain't got me. Nobody's scared of you. You're a pussy ass. Come. I got rings on, bitch. So me and you gonna fight, you pussy bitch. You're a pussy bitch. That's why your kids them don't like you. And your wife is fucking on you. That's why you gotta hide your face. My face ain't hidden, bitch. I'm American, you stupid bitch. Fuck wrong with y'all? You can take me too high. I'm sure the Zodiac friends. You know what to do? Tell them, no. You want me? Fuck wrong with y'all? Fuck all of you. Put that on the news. Let them see it. I'm so fucking ready,
I feel like she let them know how she felt. This is the kind of energy I'm talking about. This is what they think has been subdued and people just don't have in this country. And they crossed the wrong one. So they keep thinking themselves, what are we going to do? We're going to do something. I wish you would. How about somebody telling you, I'm going to hit harder, bro? I love seeing it. This is why this administration full of, fascists and white supremacists continues to think that they can suppress the rights of the right kind of people that they know aren't going to take this stuff anymore. Never would in the first place. So we're just kind of sitting back and waiting. And as they're now attacking many more Black communities, they're seeing the response is not just going to be, well, maybe they're weeding out all of the criminals and drug dealers as they come for children and put them up in zip ties as they did in Chicago. It's jumping in through windows and breaking down people's doors. There was a video I also saw someone, they went in these folks' house, these Spanish-speaking folks' houses, and just ransacked the place. And then left without incident because, those folks, actually, there was no reason to break into people's homes. I'm telling you, bro, this is the United States of America, where they've made sure to point out and say, yo, pack your guns, get them ready. Someone breaks into your house, the castle doctrine, all these things that they like to talk about. And they're going to violate all those things that they said. And this is what they want. But this woman said she hits hard. It made me smile. I enjoyed it. More energy like that. Because, people may have that in their heart, but not necessarily say it to these guys' faces. Because they think they can just talk tough and people will run away. Fuck out of here. Okay. On to the first story. It was a nice way to start. I feel a little bit better now leading in to instead this. As I said, what's going on this weekend, the No Kings protests all over the country, and I think in other parts of the world. It happened the first time months ago in a few other countries, but more focus being what's going on in the United States of America, all over the country. I looked at a map of where this is happening. It's littered with a bunch of gold points. Look up the Axios article on where all of these No Kings protests are happening. But the reasons why this is spreading so much is because of the abhorrent way that this administration is running things, and also the way that his fascist party, this fascist Republican Party now, is carrying all of his messages with them. Here's a quick little mashup that Midas Touch did on the fear and the scared, same old tired, played out lines that this Republican Party is trying to push to try and distract people from knowing what it is that's about to go down on Saturday.
This No Kings rally this weekend, that's the blue hair anthropomorphic, experiment that's going to happen up here in Washington, D.C.
Clearly, the Democrat Party of today is not your grandfather's Democrat Party. They care about one thing and one thing only: appeasing the radical, pro-terrorist wing of their party.
The same crowd planning to protest at their I Hate America rally this weekend.
Well, one of the things that I hope Cass Patel and Pam Bondi are looking into is, the funding of these groups. Who pays for the buses to bus a lot of these folks in? Who pays for the trucks that have riot gear that they hand out to the peaceful protesters? Again, I hope they are peaceful here, the No Kings protest, whatever. But again, it's absurd.
We shouldn't have to wait until the Hate America rally this weekend or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah, they're scared. They don't want everyone to see just the mass numbers of people who are against the bullshit that keeps on going down. People like Tom Emmer there, who was talking about how he was reading from his prepared statement that was given to him from the Republican MAGA fascist talking points. He goes, they're trying to appear, appeasing. I'm sorry, I didn't write this down myself. I don't actually have an original thought in my brain. My job is to just push this same narrative to make sure you guys don't think that the vast majority of Americans are against this madness. Oddly, I'm going to show you even more how scared these guys are. Scott Bessent, who's supposed to be talking about financial issues and things with these tariffs and how they're destroying the economy, he brought it up himself because, he's afraid of what is it's going to be on display on Saturday.
We're on day 15, and it doesn't look like there's any sign of a deal.
Well, there's a thought out there that they're at least waiting to this crazy No Kings rally this weekend, which is going to be the farthest left, the hardest core, the most unhinged in the Democratic Party, which is, a big title. And, no kings equal no paychecks. We are paying our military today. The Pentagon went into surplus funds and will be able to make paychecks. And, you know,
It's worth
Bro, it sounded like they were talking about the government shutdown, the one that Donald Trump is celebrating and talking about how it's destroying more people's lives and thinning out the government even further and coalescing all the energy and resources he has underneath him, like a dictator. Maybe that's what made him think about the No Kings protest. They're so afraid to keep regurgitating the same lines. By the way, what was that about? What? No paychecks? He's no kings equals no paychecks, he said. Oddly, it's not even the first or last time that he said it.
But I believe that the Democrats will come to their senses soon. Maybe it's after this No Kings thing, but no kings equal no paychecks.
It's weird that Herman Munster had to read that same simple line, bro. It's in your normal prepared statements. You're supposed to just kind of know it already, make it sound a little bit more natural. But no kings means no protest. So that means in their brains, let's go ahead and see this connect these points, because they just say things and don't really think about what it is that they're saying. We need to have some kings or else no one is going to get paid. That's what that means. No kings means no paychecks. So therefore paychecks means yes to kings, because that's what they're supporting. The guy who said he's not going to be a dictator, doesn't want to be a monarch, doesn't want to be a king. That is until he got into office and said, yeah, actually, I was lying to you guys on that too, because he's a liar. But just make sure you remember, they keep talking about the Democrat Party, Democrats. They're connecting Democrats to these protests that are going to be vast. They also don't realize how bad that looks. So the vast numbers of people that come out that you're going to claim are Antifa and are coming to kill your children and are terrorists, as they keep on saying, all those folks are connected to the Democratic Party, which you'll see a vast majority of the country being connected to. You probably don't want to make that connection, but you figure, their bubble talking points is actually permeating everyone else's lives, despite the fact that they're destroying everyone else's lives. That's why there's military guys in the streets right now, because they know that the pushback is coming. Sean Hannity did his job as well over on Fox News, because state media always has to be the one helping to push these lines. But notice what it is that he's focusing on, because he knows who his audience is. And he's talking to this egghead sumbitch right here, Stephen Miller.
Stephen Miller is with us. I want to give some unsolicited advice, because I love the people in this country. And in cities and towns around this country, they're going to have these No Kings rally. And to me, it has all the feel of the environment in the summer of 2020, the mostly peaceful riots where, a couple of dozen dead Americans, thousands of injured cops, billions in property damage. I would advise people, again, unsolicited, find out if there's a rally near where you are and stay away. I would hate to see innocent people hurt.
Is that like a threat, Sean? You'd hate to see innocent people hurt. Find those rallies and stay away. Please don't add your name to, or add your face and your energy to this uprising against this fascist dictator wannabe in the White House. Don't do it, please. Find it, guys. Please don't, because I know my Fox News audience is listening and trying to believe everything I say. So please don't participate, no matter how bad things are, no matter how much he keeps flipping middle fingers in your face. Please don't push back. They're really trying to disrupt and change the narrative and characterizations of what is it's going to be happening and the types of things that are going on. So by the way, for people that do go to these protests, be ready for the pushback to come from the violent dictator's personal army that he's unleashing in front of folks. They've been told to start fights. They've been told to start assaulting and attacking people. There's going to be plenty of folks out there to say, don't take that bait. But there's always going to be some of that, or else you're just going to get your ass whooped while you're standing with your hands behind your back. That's the plan. They want people to finally have enough of guts to be like, I'm not taking this anymore. The violence keeps getting hurled at us. Here's that fascist president talking about it too, because they definitely have to make sure his sorry ass is happy and I guess feeling protected by his his blanket of fellow wannabes.
Stupid move. And they don't want to talk about it. They have their day coming up. I hear very few people are going to be there, by the way, but they have their day coming up and they want to have their day in the sun. but they should really make a deal. So what we're doing, I mean, they call him Darth Vader, but he's actually a very nice person, Russell Vogt. But Russell Vogt is really terminating tremendous numbers of Democrat stupid move.
Everything they're talking about with this No Kings protest is based around this government shutdown, as he then goes back to celebrating what it is that Russ Vought, aka Darth Vader, is going to be doing. Yo, are you for the government being shut down, or are you against it? I've been seeing him celebrate this more than really anyone else. How great it's going to be. Can't wait to shut down more things. Darth Vader is going to kill more people's jobs. He's going to destroy this country further. And I don't know why the Democrats are letting us fuck things up. I think they missed that part where they keep saying they're the ones that are messing all this stuff up. But just in case all of their warnings and their threats and their mischaracterizations of the people that will be out there don't really land with enough folks, the next step then, of course, is to, continue to abuse power and claim that they're coming after more political enemies. And if you do that now, if you guys step out in the streets now, Ted Cruz, who, is still on his knees after Donald Trump insulted his dad, his wife, and him, called them all pieces of shit, ugly ones. Here's this sorry sumbitch trying to push this narrative.
What I've been urging is follow the money, cut off the money. And you look at this No Kings rally, and there's considerable evidence that George Soros and his network is behind funding these rallies, which may well be riots all across the country. And Soros is writing the check. And so I've introduced legislation called the Stop Funders Act that would add rioting to the list of predicate offenses for RICO. Why is that? Because it would let the Department of Justice use RICO, racketeering, to prosecute the money that is funding the anti-Semitic protests on campuses, the pro-open border protest in LA and other cities, and these No King protests. Anyone that is supporting rioting and violence, it lets you go after the money. And I'll tell you, there are more than 200 left-wing groups behind these No Kings rallies this weekend. They deliberately are blind to what each of the others are doing. That's part of how they avoid accountability. RICO is designed for precisely that sort of criminal enterprise. And so I believe the Senate, we ought to take up and vote on and pass our Stop Funders legislation. And I've urged both Pam Bondi at DOJ and Kash Patel at FBI, follow the money and prosecute those who are writing checks funding acts of violence, political violence or otherwise, across the country.
Ted Cruz is begging for Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, the two main headlined people that are protecting pedophiles with the Epstein files. He's begging them to do something about the Stop Funders Act that he's going to introduce. Ted Cruz is all on board for any children in the United States and across the world to be sex trafficked, to be abused, to their lives to be destroyed. Ted Cruz is all on board for that because he has nothing to say about that. He has a lot to say about George Soros. Man, when George Soros is no longer with us, man, I'm not sure who they're going to have to find next to come up with this old boogeyman that they keep pushing back on people to scare them into thinking he's funding everything. He's funding it. He's funding it. Man, can you believe it? He's funded the whole thing. Man, George Soros got some serious energy. This is great. Maybe he should be the president because they keep talking about the vast amounts of energy these guys got. They said the same thing about Joe Biden, in between saying that he's Sleepy Joe. None of it makes any sense. But the one thing that Ted Cruz wants to let Donald Trump know is that his knee pads are ready. He's ready to kiss the crusty feet and lick the orange ass. That's all he's available for. I'm your guy. So again, it's the funders, it's these terrorists, it's the Antifas, and no one is as transparent at this propaganda talking points than J.D. Vance. So here he is on this podcast, and I want you guys to pay attention to how many times he talks about left-wing violence. That same argument that they lost after they obviously and explicitly took down the information that proved how much right-wing violence there is in the country versus left-wing violence. So he's got to push the propaganda, but it's very, very played out.
You might call the deep state, where they almost automatically assume that left-wing political violence is protected by the First Amendment and right-wing political violence is a crime. And you sort of see just that the basic muscle memory, the basic sort of apparatus of government is very, very primed at right-wing political violence. But the instinct is to almost say, well, no, that left-wing political violence, that's actually protected by the First Amendment. So no, political violence, wherever it comes from, is just not protected by the First Amendment. And because we have such a big problem with left-wing political violence, we have to train the investigatory and law enforcement powers of the government to focus on that particular problem. Now, I think Scott maybe has the most important part of this, because a lot of this is financial, right? If a brick gets thrown through a wall in a government building, who bought the brick? If somebody shows up and is a paid protester, but then that person goes and riots and commits an act of violence, who paid for it? If you have an application that's helping people hunt down or even avoid law enforcement officers, if you're helping immigrants avoid illegal immigrants avoid ICE enforcement, but you're helping people actually target the law enforcement officers who are trying to enforce our immigration laws, well, who's paying for the hosting there? Who's paying for the programming? There's an entire financial element of this, but we really have to retrain the entire government to focus on this left-wing violence problem. We're doing it. It's going to go a little bit more slowly than we'd like, but we are doing it.
So it's like 4 or 5 times this guy, left-wing political violence, left-wing political violence, left-wing political violence, left-wing political violence. As then he wants that to be masked over him literally saying, we're going to go after people that have apps from folks who want to avoid illegal activities of these ICE agents. Like I said, there's a video of these folks running up into people's houses, kicking in doors, breaking them down, pointing guns in people's faces while babies are crying in the room. And he wants to characterize the folks that are the victims of that, who they then left their house with no incident because it was an illegal break-in of people's houses. He wants to then say, we're going to go after the funders of the people that notify these innocent folks to make sure they avoid being victims. Are we in full-blown fascism yet? Were all the people who pointed out that this is a fascist administration and a fascist campaign when it was happening, are they all still crazy? Or are they saying all the loud parts really loudly? Maybe that's it. So speaking of that, let's move on to this next story. I went on that longer than I wanted to, bro. But listen, it's I think it's important. It's a big enough deal. But let's go ahead and shift gears. I want to jump over to what it is, some of the more of the fallout that happened, considering that JD Vance and all of them are talking about left-wing political violence, and all that dirty rhetoric that leads to more violence. Except, I guess, right-wing political violence, that's the vast majority of political violence that's happening, as well as right-wing racism, bigotry, sexism, xenophobia, all of it that literally thrives throughout this party. Remember those young Republicans that I talked about yesterday? Those young guys, those children that were busted by this lengthy Politico article. They're having to try and clean it up a little bit. Adam Mockler went on this debate thing on News Nation. It was all over the place. And he asked Charlie Kirk's producer about that story. Okay.
Listen, there has been a trend of, I think, let's just say, let's be gracious and say, in the era of Trump, maybe it's a reaction to Trump. I'm open to those discussions, but there is a justification for political violence. It shows up in every poll, and it's coming from progressives.
I have spent all of my formative years watching the president of the United States talk about the opposition party like they shouldn't exist. His claim to fame in U.S. politics was saying that Obama wasn't born in America. That is how he entered the political stage. He was famous before that, but that was his claim to fame. He was the first presidential candidate to ever chant "lock her up" on a political stage. He tried to coup our government. Well, and I live in this, let me finish. Listen. I live in the city of Chicago. Donald Trump, over the past 2 months, has not only posted an AI video of Obama being arrested, but then after that, he posted an AI image of Chicago being invaded. After that, he sent the National Guard to Chicago. So I've spent my formative years watching the president do this. And just think about this. We saw these Nazi group chats, which I'm sure you condemn, right? This Nazi group chat.
Well, we can talk about it.
Do you condemn it?
I want to talk about it.
Wait, so when they said gas chambers,
disavow.
when they say gas chambers, you won't. So you're like JD Vance. You just won't condemn this.
Well, I actually had JD on the show today. We had a whole conversation.
You guys can all condemn this, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hold on.
All right.
Hold on.
But
Chris, can you condemn that?
Here's the point, of course. But that's easy. What I'm
for him, but you know what? This is not constructive, right?
Because what the constructive part is not. This is what's happening here, and I know both of you guys, and I want to bring Joe in on this, and I want to get to the audience. But let's just be clear about where the path is forward. The comparison of which is worse is killing us. Okay, it's killing.
I'm ready to shut his ass up. Did you notice? In come everyone to the rescue for this sorry asshole. He can't answer the question. I'm sorry, he could answer the question. He refused to answer the question. Do you condemn all of this rabid racism amongst the Hitler youth of the Republican Party? We can just talk about it. I think it was Stephen A. Smith who was the only one who said he could, but Stephen A. Smith is an idiot. But Bill O'Reilly's old, crusty, decrepit ass had nothing to say. I'm not sure but the main thing is in comes Chris Cuomo to save the day. Let's not point out how horrible you guys are on this topic. Let's not point out how hypocritical you are on this topic. Let's not point out how you've been incessantly lying about this topic. Let's just say this is not constructive. If it's not constructive, maybe you should talk to the guys who continue to destroy things in this country based on their white supremacy that they like to have in their chats. That also leads to policy, leads to their agendas, which leads to this Trump guy in the White House that's doing all these things to destroy this country based on those same principles of white supremacy. That's why that guy didn't want to talk about it. That's Charlie Kirk's producer. That's the other part of it. They want to continue to preserve this guy from this built-up name that they've got for him, when in reality, he was all about all that stuff too. This is probably one of the more viewed responses to this from Republicans that are trying to act like this isn't what it is. Still from that young Republican chat group.
By focusing on what kids are saying in a group chat, grow up. I'm sorry. Focus on the real issues. Don't focus on what kids say in group chats. But there's another angle to this that I just have to be honest about. I mean, I'm like an old guy at this point. I'm 41 years old. I have 3 kids. You know, I grew up in a different world, right? Where not most of the stupid things that I did when I was a teenager and a young adult, they're not on the internet. Like, I'm going to tell my kids, especially my boys, don't put things on the internet. Like, be careful with what you post. If you put something in a group chat, assume that some scumbag is going to leak it in an effort to try to cause you harm or cause your family harm. But the reality is that kids do stupid things, especially young boys. They tell edgy, offensive jokes. Like, that's what kids do. And I really don't want us to grow up in a country where a kid telling a stupid joke, telling a very offensive, stupid joke, is cause to ruin their lives. And at some point, we're all going to have to say, enough of this BS. We're not going to allow the worst moment in a 21-year-old's group chat to ruin a kid's life for the rest of time. That's just not okay. Like, we live in a digital world. This stuff is now etched in stone online. We're all going to have to say, you know what? No. We're not doing this. We're not canceling kids because they do something stupid in a group chat. And if I have to be the person who carries that message forward, I'm fine with it.
He's putting his name on being an absolute and utter bigot, a piece of shit. JD Vance is open to being that guy that's going to be the mouthpiece for these young bigots, for these young racists, these young misogynists, these young homophobic and anti-Semitic pieces of shit. Do you notice we haven't been talking about the anti-Semitic element of this whole time because they want to continue to focus on the people that they feel that they've weaponized their movement against? Who cares about the racism? Who cares about the xenophobia? Who cares about the homophobia? Who cares about it? But they haven't said yet who cares about the anti-Semitism. Did you notice that? Have you seen a bunch of groups that talk about anti-Semitism? Ted Cruz earlier was talking about how these college campuses are protesting and they're anti-Semitic. That shit hasn't been happening for months, but he keeps going back to it. They say everything for the sake of bullshitting you and arguing you down from reality. They need to form your reality. That's why they don't want you to go to those protests. That's why they don't want people to see it. That's why Donald Trump, who's shaking in his boots, said, I heard not many people are going to show up. But JD Vance is going to call these guys kids. Oh man, just it shouldn't ruin their lives. When just a minute ago, I played a video of Vance talking about how we need to shut down apps that allow people to avoid this illegal Gestapo running up into their house. Why would you ruin people's lives? They're just doing stupid things online, JD. They're just starting apps. I mean, they're just some kids trying to figure out ways to maybe navigate their way through this life. Shouldn't ruin people's lives. You know what I mean? The way that you separate families and ruin children's lives, the way that you act like someone that was literally 2 or 3, 4 months old when they arrived in this country and then ruin their lives, send their parents or them off to some other country that they've never even been to before. Because, you know, that's not ruining people's lives. When a white supremacist says that doesn't ruin people's lives, it's because he doesn't consider their lives as valuable as the white supremacist that JD Vance just said he's looking to protect. Just listen to what they're saying. None of this is masked. They're just making it seem like it's a good thing. So I was going to do this myself, but I saw multiple people post about this. JD Vance called them kids. This might be a little small for you guys to see right here. Here's some of those racists that were in those group chats and their ages. Peter Gunta is 31. Joe Maligno is 35. Annie Caddy is at 28. Alex Dwyer, 29. William Hendricks, 24. Luke Mosselman, 24. Samuel Douglas, 27. And Rachel Hope is also 27 years old. Those racists, those guys, those anti-Semites that I guess their funding should be pulled, just like the college campuses, they're 31 to 24 years old, 35 to 24 years old. Kids, children. And the young Republican situation goes, the range from 18 to 40. Miss me with all that nonsense. Everyone knows it. That's the worst part. Every time we hear these guys talk like this, everyone knows that it's nonsense. Everyone knows that it doesn't make any sense, but we're too afraid to point it out. As a matter of fact, you know who keeps pointing it out, except he supports it? Every time these guys are busted being as rabidly racist and Nazi-like as people, you know, like Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes comes forward and says, I'm all on board. I'm just glad they're finally talking like me. I guess he's a lefty.
This is what I'm talking about. Like, everyone's a groiper now. I don't even know these people. I've never met these people. And I don't know that they identify as groipers. I don't believe they talked about me. If they did, I'm sure it'd be in here. But it just goes to show this is the mood of my generation. This is the mood. This is the zeitgeist of the under 25, under 30 crowd, especially for white men. It's just where they are. These guys were doing a great thing. These guys are, they're not woke, they're based, and they're doing what they're supposed to be. They're rising up in the party leadership. They're rising up in the government. The mistake that they made is that they were sloppy. This is what I'm talking about. Like,
the only difference between Nick Fuentes and JD Vance is that Nick Fuentes is speaking directly about the shit that he believes in. JD Vance is saying it with this very thin veil of, I support these racists. He just won't say that they're racist. Nick Fuentes is willing to say, yeah, we're a bunch of groipers, all of us. Their only problem was that they were sloppy with it. It is the same thing that JD Vance said. They just got their stuff revealed online and they got it weaponized against them. In other words, they were sloppy with their racism. Unlike me, JD Vance thinks that he's not sloppy with his racism. He actually thinks his way of talking is convincing people. People, like, they know how full of shit he is. They can see it, but he just keeps rolling downhill because Donald Trump pats him on the head and drops him a couple pieces of kibble and puts the collar on not too tight. The choke collar, when he snatches his bitch ass back, isn't so bad. But did you hear about this? Let me show you this picture. Apparently this is from some kind of online, I guess, group chat meeting or something in the office of Congressman Dave Taylor from Ohio. Of course, he's a Republican. See the American flag behind this guy? He's a staffer for Congressman Dave Taylor. I'm going to get to some details of it, but right in the middle of that American flag, there appears to be a swastika built in. So, of course, this is caught like fire everywhere. Some may wonder if it's been doctored. Maybe it has. Here's details. Politico obtained this image taken during a virtual meeting that shows the flag pinned to what appears to be a cubicle wall behind Angelo Ilia, one of Taylor's staffers. Alongside that flag, with altered red and white lines in the shape of a swastika, are pinned images, including, ironically, a pocket constitution and a congressional calendar. It's unclear what role, if any, Elia had in that incident, but he also didn't respond to any request for it. We're not sure exactly if it was his particular area of the office. Who knows the details, because they're kind of keeping tight-lipped about it. It could just be something that's in this congressman's office. So maybe the staffer's like, yo, y'all ain't gonna pin this shit on me. Here's more though, because here's some of the response from the congressman. He says, I'm aware of an image that appears to depict a vile and deeply inappropriate symbol near an employee in my office. He said this in a statement. The content of that image does not reflect the values or standards of this office, my staff, or myself, and I condemn it in the strongest terms. Taylor also said that he immediately directed a thorough investigation alongside the Capitol Police, and he added, no further comment will be provided until it has been completed, until we cover this up. The flag was found inside Taylor's office in the Cannon Building in Washington, D.C. Tuesday afternoon, according to an office spokesperson. And Taylor then believes it's the result of foul play or vandalism. So for the people, as you guys may see this online, that start saying things like, yo, man, that was AI. Yo, that was Photoshop. Man, they doctored that. They're trying to pull this off. You guys fall for all those tricks. I hear you. They should take it up with the office spokesperson that said the flag was found inside Taylor's office and that they believe it's foul play or vandalism, not Photoshop. I'm just reading what it is that's in front of us when when all the excuses start hitting the fan. But there's one other person that's probably as straightforward as Nick Fuentes was, as he pointed out what this Republican Party is and how proud he is of their newfound connections and their newfound confidence to say what they've always truly believed. He's Stephen Miller. And this other guy that doesn't think too much past anything that he says, because he's also emboldened, Donald Trump. He revealed one more thing about Stephen Miller that was pretty damn obvious.
Didn't get elected. I did get elected for crime, but I didn't get elected for what we're doing. This is many, many steps above it. I want to thank Stephen Miller, who's right back in the audience right there. I'd love to have him. I love watching him on television. I'd love to have him come up and explain his true feelings, but maybe not his truest feelings. That might be going a little bit too far. But Stephen, thank you for doing an unbelievable job. And the people of this country love you, I'll tell you. And they love what you say about crime and stopping crime. Didn't get elected. I did.
If the people of this country love everything that you say and you do about crime and everything that you do, why can't you tell us his true feelings? What are his true feelings? This dumb. What are his true feelings? What are Stephen Miller's true feelings that are probably a little bit too much and over the edge? When have you ever seen a president brag about how his right-hand man that's pushing his Nazi policy, he doesn't want to reveal everything that he believes just in case too many people hear it and understand just how rabidly Nazi he is? That's what the president said. Stop acting like anybody else is calling these guys a bunch of Nazis and fascists. He just did. He can't even reveal it. And this guy reveals everything. He probably will next week. He'll be like, I'm sick of all of these texts that keep getting leaked. I'm just going to put it out there because that's what this country is. They feel that there's no more barriers. And, there kind of barely isn't. That's why they're afraid about this weekend's protests that are coming up, because it's going to show a lot of people exactly what it is, that think that they should be afraid and think that they're in the minority of folks because they keep pushing things like, everybody loves you, Stephen Miller. I won in a landslide. Hey, I have a mandate. All those lies that they like to tell that don't make any sense, it's going to reveal the opposite. Because, maybe people don't see it enough. Maybe they're too busy concerned about the predicament that this president is putting them in from a vast number of topics. But, he can't reveal what Stephen Miller really believes. Trust me, we know. Last story here, you guys. By the way, find I mentioned the no protest. Find it in your area, um, and see if you can be out there for it. I mean, that is if you're against fascism. It's okay if you're not. I'm just saying, just in case you are. I want to shift gears one last time to this Argentina story because it is growing and it's developing. The growing part is the part where they're giving even more money to Argentina. I just found that out yesterday. But Manu Raju from CNN caught up with Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson's in front of a lot of cameras lately, and he has a lot of excuses to make. It's a good thing he's really bad at lying.
Mr. Speaker, the president is offering his $20 billion bailout to Argentina. Are you okay with that, given the debt and with the fact that we're in shutdown right now?
I'm trying to get the details on that. I didn't talk about it with the president last night when I was there, and I'm not sure calling it a bailout is the right description. I don't know anything about it yet. I've been really busy, as you probably noticed, but I'm waiting to get an update on it.
Thanks.
Manu, I'm really busy. As you can tell, I'm busy doing nothing but keeping all of my folks out of government so we can keep this place shut down because Donald Trump told me to. Yo, hold on, wait, I just got a ding in my collar and I've got to go back and visit him a little bit further. So for some reason, Mike Johnson thinks that he can keep coming up with this excuse that he has no idea what's going on with anything when he doesn't want to answer the question. I got to go check in and see what I'm supposed to say, which lies exactly I'm supposed to push, because he wasn't ready for that question about what it is that we're doing in Argentina. I guess Donald Trump wasn't ready for it either. Listen to the question here and see if you can find an answer.
How is this Argentina rescue package America first? And is this rescue package meant to help President Milei's party in the coming election?
No, it's really meant to help a good financial philosophy where Argentina can, after 20 years of disaster, because it was very successful at one point, and it can be again, like Venezuela. Venezuela was very, very successful, and now it's a dictatorship. When we can help our neighbors, we're making tremendous progress in South America. South America, Marco was telling me, he's like our great expert here. He really does it. You were telling me that so many of the countries are coming our way. And we had a few years ago when I just came back. So I've been here now almost 9 months. But when I just came in, I was amazed to see how poorly we've done. We lost so many, and one of them was Argentina. Would be lost if he wasn't there. And I think he will be there because the people recognize he's done an amazing job. He took over a real mess. So did I take over a mess. I took over a mess by the Biden group, and Obama he started it. I'll tell you, Barack Hussein Obama started it. Could you give a couple of words on South America? You were telling me so well yesterday how well we're doing.
Hold on, wait. The question was, how is this bailout for Argentina of $20 billion? How is that America first? Did you hear Donald Trump mention anything about America? Did you hear him mention anything about how what he's doing in Argentina, he and his rich, elitist, oligarch, fascist buddies, what they're doing in Argentina, how that helps Americans? Did you hear it? I listened to it like 3 or 4 times. There's a spoiler. He didn't say anything about America. He said how we're losing Argentina and we've lost other Latin American countries. What do you mean you lost them? This sounds like, a colonizer. This sounds like someone who wants to push his influence on other countries. That doesn't sound like the guy who called himself a populist during the campaign and said he's going to focus on America and stop dealing with these other countries and giving them all of our money. I remember that slogan. I remember that push. I remember a bunch of MAGA folks saying, I can't stand how these Democrats keep dealing in other countries. We keep giving our money away for these foreign wars. So instead, what he's doing, he wants to take our money and do like a domestic war against American citizens while also giving our money away to someone else that he has control over. And he can have them do whatever he wants to do this one thing because, there's oligarchs surrounding him. And that purpose is to make some money, bro. Javier Milei of Argentina, who they've propped up as their boy out there to to implement their strategy of destroying that country the way that Elon Musk and Donald Trump immediately did here, he was also in the room. And he was asked, Donald Trump was asked what it is that this support is all about. And he accidentally answered that question truthfully.
And when he was campaigning, and even before his campaign, he's a great economist, and he was saying a lot of very correct things, and he was very much in a conservative mode. And he was make Argentina great again. It worked. I actually sent him some hats for his early part of the campaign, and then he called me. He wanted a lot more, and I said, "When does it stop? When will it stop?" And it stopped with him winning, and he's become very popular, and he's on the verge of a breakthrough. I think he's really on the verge of tremendous economic success. And I know that Scott Bessent is helping, and our great Scott is doing a job, and he feels very strongly about it. And the election is coming up very soon, and it's a very big election being watched by the world because he's done an incredible job. But with that comes some pain. And they have some pain, and now they're coming out of it. I think the victory is very important. Your poll numbers, I hear, are pretty good, but I think they'll be better after this. And, you know, our approvals are somewhat subject to who wins the election, because if a socialist, or in the case of New York City, a communist wins, you feel a lot differently about making an investment. I think, Scott, you'd feel that if somebody that had no chance, in other words, if somebody wins and has no chance of ever having a great economy because of that philosophy, you would put a halt to what we're doing.
Did you hear what he was saying at the back end there? First of all, he talked about how Scott Bessent is helping. Scott Bessent is helping. I'm gonna get to the details of that in a second. But this guy, who he said our approvers are subject to who wins the election. He's not talking about American elections. He's talking about upcoming elections around other elected officials in Argentina who will have it out for this guy because he's screwing things up. You know why he's screwing things up? Javier Milei, because he's the puppet for Donald Trump, Scott Bessent, and the rest of these oligarchs that want him to do certain things in that country to make them more money. They don't care about the citizens of Argentina. They don't care about any kind of building up of that nation. What they care about is building up and stealing more resources from someone else. And they found them a guy. You're always going to find yourself a puppy to lead around in the other country, say, this is our guy. They're openly saying it. But what he said was, if whoever wins that election, if it's someone who can't implement that kind of economic strategy that we have, that he calls a great economy, how great is our economy looking? He says it can make you feel differently about making an investment. I wish these reporters would listen to what this guy's saying in the room and then say, making an investment? What are you investing in Argentina? What are you investing in? And how do you lose a country that's a sovereign nation? Is this like an extra state? Is Argentina the 51st state that you tried to make Canada? I'm just trying to figure out what all this means. Just have some easy, honest questions and see if he can answer them, because he revealed a lot. But he said victory is important. There's a reason that victory is important. Because of that investment that Donald Trump was just talking about. Like I said, this is what I just found out yesterday. I'm a little mad that I did. Maybe it did just happen yesterday. But Bessent says that this bailout, because he said Scott Bessent's working on it, this bailout for Argentina will double to boost their U.S. influence there is on that country. Isn't that crazy? So really fast, the Trump administration is working to arrange this private sector financing for Argentina that would double the total U.S. financial lifeline for that South American nation, part of a broader effort to swing the region to the right politically. And Scott Bessent is the one that's all about this. The U.S. government authorized an extraordinary $20 billion currency swap this month, which is basically a loan to prop up that sagging Argentine peso, which has fallen more than 24% against the dollar this year. Bessent said Wednesday that the administration was marshaling in an additional $20 billion from banks and sovereign wealth funds to help Argentina make its foreign debt payments. Isn't that crazy? Well, isn't that crazy? It started with, how was this investment or this bailout, which also Mike Johnson didn't want to call a bailout. It's an investment. That doesn't sound better, bro. How this bailout makes America better, how it fulfills your promises of America first. None of it is there. But what it is Scott Bessent trying to push this country more and mold it in their favor so they can steal more money from it and invest in it. You guys want to know what kind of investments they've got in Argentina? You want to know? Here's one of those guys that has investments in Argentina. This is a bit of a throwback to maybe a few weeks ago when I talked about this before, in case you guys missed that video. Trump's Argentina bailout enriches this one well-connected U.S. billionaire. See if this pops up ever. Bring it up. There it goes. So this is when they only announced $20 billion. We're up to $40 billion, as Scott Bessent was pointing out. But this guy, Rob Citroni, I guess is how his name is pronounced. He's a billionaire hedge fund manager, and he's one of Scott Bessent's oldest, best friends. They made each other rich. So as obviously, when two guys who went through their Discovery Capital Management and all of their shark-like things to make all of their money, and now they've advanced on to another country because there's never enough money. He and Scott Bessent have to scratch each other's backs and help each other out. So in this case, Rob Citroni has invested a bunch of money into Argentina. Now that president is doing the things that Elon Musk is doing, slashing the federal government, destroying things and firing people and coalescing and collecting all the money that they can themselves to anyone else. Now that's destroying that country, as we see how the pesos being destroyed there, they have to reinvest more into it because they're losing, and they can't lose. So they take our money and give it to them. And the second half of the 40 billion is these private equity, whatever they're building up. But if an American says something like, maybe the rich should pay their fair share in this country for the raping and pillaging they've been doing to our economy since forever, you're anti-American. But their money can go to another country to try and build up that president that is obviously their puppet, that Donald Trump accidentally said, well, winning elections is the basis for our investment. All you got to do is listen to them. All you got to do is listen to them. It's very easy to just listen to them. I'm going over a few minutes because this last aspect of this is very important. It's very important. And it's connected somewhat to the Argentina stuff, the increase now to $40 billion. But I want to show you guys what's going on in this country, in case you guys forgot the way that Donald Trump somehow forgot. In the state of Alaska, while we're giving $40 billion to Argentina.
Sparking disastrous and deadly flooding in Alaska this weekend.
Let me start it. Here it is.
Well, Typhoon Halong sparking disastrous and deadly flooding in Alaska this weekend. Floodwaters swept through coastal communities in the western part of the state. And as of this morning, several dozen people have had to be rescued. But tragically, one person has died. 2 others remain missing.
Yeah, still shocking video, even as we look at it on this Wednesday from out of the weekend. Alaska DOT saying a combined 50 airports and roads were damaged as a result of this. Access and communication to these remote communities severed in some cases, and more than 1,000 people taking shelter across the region. As we know, crews are rolling in to help in the response and recover. We have Taylor Souson, national spokesperson of the American Red Cross, joining us now. And Taylor, I think what's so wild, I saw the number 50 for airports and roads, but was reminded that a lot of these communities are so remote, they rely on these airports for small planes to navigate back and forth. And without that accessibility, it really puts them at even greater risk in recovering from this.
Yeah, so about 90% of Alaska is actually inaccessible by road. So these communities that have been impacted are part of that 90%. There is no access to these villages except via plane and sometimes boat, depending on if, there are river access to these villages. So this has made the disaster response particularly difficult.
A United States state, an American state, is flooding. How much have you heard about it? Have you seen major news networks talking about it? Have you seen major news networks talking about the devastation and the people's entire lives being upended and being destroyed? People dying, people missing, people not even really knowing everything that's happening because communication is scant. Have you heard about it? Well, let me let you hear more about it, because the guy who's bailing out Argentina isn't talking about it.
Right now, the American Red Cross is working with our state, our local, and our tribal governments to provide as much disaster assistance as we can. Right now, we have about half a dozen volunteers are staged in one of the hub communities of Bethel. That is the closest, less remote communities to the major villages that have been impacted. You're seeing photos of villages of Kipnuk and Quingillingok. Those are the ones that are, we're seeing the most significant impact. And the state and the tribal governments have evacuated a number of people out of those villages to these hub villages where we're able to provide more of a wraparound support. There are some areas in Alaska where we have yet to hear what the storm impacts were because we have no connectivity with them. So it really is a challenge for disaster responders to begin to even evaluate the level of damage that we're seeing, across more than 40 communities that have been impacted by this storm.
Local and tribal communities are left to do this on their own, in coordination with that woman talking about from the Red Cross. Nothing from the federal government, nothing from these guys who came into office and said things like FEMA, we're shutting down because I don't want those Democrats to have any help. And by the way, he's screwing over Republicans too, because he honestly doesn't give a damn about anybody. He's just got them he's just leading them around by their noses, keep saying, keep hating those Democrats, and I'm gonna keep screwing you over. But up in Alaska, they're left in the lurch, doing it on their own. As we saw, it's very inaccessible to get to many of these areas, but Donald Trump doesn't give a damn. This whole administration doesn't give a damn. Federal dollars instead are going to invading American cities, and they're going to mass deportations. They're not going to preserving people's lives. They're definitely not going to preventing any of these things happening to these folks' lives. They literally don't care. As less and less media gets access to this administration, as we saw from the Pentagon to, I think, pretty soon the White House, this is how there's this blackout of knowledge and information. They're shutting down agencies. They're shutting down opportunities for people to get help. And they don't want you to hear about it. They don't want anyone reporting about it. They just want it silent as destruction happens. Let me show you a little bit more of that destruction, because we always have to see these racist faces all the time. How about we see what it is that they're doing to the country? Here's the effects of white supremacist leadership in this country. I mean, he hires the best and the brightest, and they bring the golden era to the United States of America. That is, unless he thinks your life doesn't matter, and he thinks a lot of people's lives don't matter. Let me show you an image of a lot of these people's lives that he believes don't matter, and it's shown in their policies and in their agenda. So this is one of the first planes that's carrying evacuees from the displaced, devastating flooding in the areas. This is from Typhoon Halong, and this is from the western part of Alaska. And then they're now arriving in Anchorage. Folks just jammed up in this airplane, and who knows who they left or what their lives may end up like. next. These are the people's lives they don't care about. These are the people that they're saying, what have they done for me? What have they given me? Just like Scott Bessent said, no paychecks, no kings, no paychecks. Unless you get on board with the king, you're going to be left out to dry, like you're not even an American. But I guarantee you one thing, they're going to keep trying to collect your taxes while they give you zero in return. In fact, what they'll give you in return is violence. It's a great perspective from this woman from Alaska who knows the indigenous approach and the indigenous experience that they've had there. I didn't know about this either, and we should start listening to people that are living the experience that we keep dismissing because we're too busy focusing on the rich oligarchs that are destroying the country. Listen to this.
What's happening right now in Western Alaska, in Kipnik, Quig, and other communities is absolutely devastating. Typhoon Halong has caused massive flooding. Homes have been torn from their foundations, and some are even floating miles down the river or out into the ocean. People are missing, and families have lost everything. And yet almost no one is talking about it. Right now, it's only local media covering these stories, or us, community members. But this deserves national and international attention. To understand why these storms hit so hard, we have to remember our history. Once Alaska became a U.S. territory in 1949, the federal government forced our people and our children to attend school, or their parents faced incarceration. This policy broke apart traditional ways of life and forced Yupik people to permanently settle into areas of land. But settler colonialism forced us to live on small, flood-prone patches of land that were never meant for permanent settlement. Now, as the Arctic warms faster than anywhere else on the Earth, storms like this are growing even stronger, and they're destroying entire communities. This is not just a natural disaster. This is climate injustice. We need the world to see what's happening here. Climate change in the Arctic isn't just about our polar bears or melting ice. It's about our people. Our communities are on the front lines, and we need the world to pay attention. To those watching this, to those in media, to those especially who look to Indigenous peoples for our stories and our knowledge, do what you can to make this injustice visible, not only to the rest of this country, but to the world, because this isn't a story that just happened yesterday or years ago. This is happening right now as I speak.
These are the folks that we're ignoring. These are the folks that we've displaced and screwed up their lives for generations, as she pointed out. I want to remind folks, this isn't the first time right now with this fascist administration that America has decided to displace, destroy folks' lives, and force people into situations that obviously lead to isolation and, in this case, death and devastation. As she pointed out, even when when Alaska was made a state, they're put in this position because who cares about these people? We have to understand Donald Trump saying make America great again. It's definitely referring back to the times we've destroyed certain people's lives for this name, for the sake of white supremacy. It's been the basis since the beginning. It's permeated and it has influxes like it did then and like it's back to now. And they get very upset when anyone pushes back on it. That's why it's absolutely important that people push back on it because folks' lives are changed by it. But you'll listen to JD Vance talk about how he doesn't want these young 27 to 40-year-old white racist lives to be destroyed by their own actions, and their lives won't be destroyed. There's infrastructure in place to save the lives and the careers of fucking racists all the time in this country, all the time, as they complain about cancel culture. That's why they didn't like it. So, you guys, hang on. This gets worse. This gets worse. So we've got this flooding going on in Alaska, right? Do you know what happened earlier this year, specifically? Let me show you what's been happening as these floods happen that everyone's ignoring. New York Times points out that 5 months before these catastrophic floods swept through the Alaska native village of Kipnuk on Sunday, tearing many houses off of their foundations, the Trump administration canceled a $20 million grant intended to protect the community from such extreme flooding. The grant from the Environmental Protection Agency was designed to help stabilize the riverbank on which Kipnuk is built, protecting it from the twin threats of erosion and flooding. Pause for a second. They canceled a $20 million grant. They just committed $40 billion to Argentina to make sure that the rich oligarchs that are controlling our entire government, to make sure that, they don't lose on their bad bets because they don't know what they're doing. Back to this devastation and what they did here. In May, the EPA revoked that grant, which was issued at the end of the Biden administration, saying it was, quote, no longer consistent with the agency's priorities. Lee Zeldin, the EPA administrator, boasted on social media that he was eliminating wasteful DEI and environmental justice grants, referring to diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and programs to help communities facing disproportionate level of environmental threats. Every time these guys talked about getting rid of DEI, they figured and they knew, honestly, that enough people who are also white supremacists went, yeah, fuck those minorities, any kind of it, because they're not me. Why should my money go to that? When that money's not going to your sorry, poor ass either. But Lee Zeldin posted and boasted about how he's eliminating all this because DEI, DEI, DEI. So instead, people's lives are devastated by it. Here's more from the New York Times. This is when it gets really annoying. Senator Lisa Murkowski, remember her? Republican from Alaska, said that the flooding underscored the need for funding for underserved communities in the state. And earlier this year, Murkowski called on the Trump administration to ensure that funding for Alaska Native communities did not get swept up in the president's opposition to DEI initiatives. Here's a quote. This administration prioritizes lowering costs, but minimizing the impacts of a disaster like this before it occurs is far cheaper than rebuilding afterward, to say nothing of the toll that these events take on people's lives, is what she said in a statement. Whether you call it climate change or once in a generation extreme weather, no community in the wealthiest country on earth should lack the basic infrastructure needed to keep its people safe. That's what Lisa Murkowski said in opposition to Donald Trump and his sweeping initiatives and everything he's saying. It was Biden and Barack Hussein Obama, so I'm done doing it all, with no thought process of what it is that it will do, because he doesn't care about what it is it'll do. The people that knew what it would do are like, yes, screw those people. So I want to remind you guys of who Lisa Murkowski is. That same Republican who had issues with the things that Donald Trump was doing, but then still signed on to all those things that Donald Trump was doing. And when she did it, many people were saying, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why talk when your actions support what it is that you say you're against? Remember this exchange with Lisa Murkowski?
Senator Paul said that that your vote was a bailout for Alaska at the expense of the rest of the country.
Oh my.
That's what Senator Paul said.
I guess it was easy. Senator, we've got the.
I didn't say it, ma'am. I'm just asking for your response.
My response is I have an obligation to the people of the state of Alaska. And I live up to that every single day. I fight for my state's interests, and I make sure that Alaskans are understood. And so when people suggest that federal dollars go to one of our 50 states in a, quote, bailout, I find that offensive.
By the way, she was talking about how the reasons that she was one of those last deciding votes to jump on to this bill that Republicans passed that are destroying more people in more states than before, because they've always been on board for that, that she's offended by that. She knows it's going to hurt people in this country, but that's not a bailout. If she's looking to protect the people of her state, how are the people of your state doing right now? And by the way, that little bailout that was dangled in front of her face that they're calling a bailout, that she was taking some funds to help certain, I think it was certain fishermen, that got taken away too. So they promised you stuff, they took it away, and they keep on playing your ass. I feel like that tough guy act that Lisa Murkowski was pushing there with that reporter when he asked her why she keeps on enabling the guy who keeps tossing you middle fingers. I feel like that was an act, because this is how Lisa Murkowski really feels about running into Donald Trump and confronting him.
We're in a time and a place where I don't know, I certainly have not been here before. And I'll tell you, I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice, because retaliation is real. And that's.
She's afraid and anxious to use her voice because retaliation is real. I have a great idea. Every time I've seen this, how about you leave then? Leave it to somebody who's not afraid of representing her constituents. How about you just go home? What are you afraid of? That old piece of shit in the White House? You're afraid of him? It's not right, though, but it's not right. One of the ways that people got fooled by him, I promise I'm on the back end of this. One of the ways that people got fooled by this guy into thinking that he's on their side outside of, the rabid calls for, look at that trans person over there. Aren't you afraid? Oh my, look at that minority over there. Aren't you afraid? Oh my God, there's an immigrant right there. Aren't you afraid? That was pretty simple. Was now during this shutdown, him talking about what it is that they're doing to destroy the country and get rid of more Democrat policies and agencies and initiatives. This is what he consistently says that I guess works.
They should really make a deal. So what we're doing, I mean, they call him Darth Vader, but he's actually a very nice person, Russell Vogt. But Russell Vogt is really terminating tremendous numbers of Democrat projects. They should really make a deal. So what we're doing.
Darth Vader is eliminating a bunch of Democrat initiatives. He's destroying all the things that Democrats are about. Democrat projects. And you saw Kash Patel's sorry ass standing behind him, smirking and laughing about how they're destroying Democrat projects. Because that's good for the country. Being completely divisive, dividing it down the middle, and then trying to siphon more money from folks that you say get nothing back in return. I have an idea. How about we stop paying those damn taxes since we're not getting anything for our money? So there's one more dumbass Republican who bought that sales job, and he finds out in real time. I want you guys to watch this closely. What an idiot. Senator Tim Sheehy, he's a younger guy. He's in Montana. I believe maybe he's in his first term there as a senator in Montana. And he's a hardcore, big time MAGA guy. He got into office based off of kissing Donald Trump's ass. So Donald Trump is taking away, don't forget, he just said Donald Trump is taking away Democrat projects. Caitlin Collins has to let this guy know what's happening in the state of Montana, because the senator that's from the state of Montana has no clue.
The Department of Energy just canceled $1 billion to the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub. Part of that covers your state of Montana, and your governor actually praised it when it was happening, saying it was going to create good-paying Montana jobs and boost American-made energy. They just yanked $1 billion from that. So is that taking away good-paying jobs in Montana?
Of course it is. As I said, we want the government to be open. You should be saying this to Chuck Schumer, who's closing the government down. I'm agreeing we should have the government open right now. This is an unnecessary shutdown.
But that you're acknowledging that what the Trump administration just pulled in funding is hurting your state.
Having troops not being able to fulfill their functions, having law enforcement officers, having air traffic controllers not be able to direct flights into our airports in Montana hurts our state. Not having federal employees showing up to Farm Service Agency offices during cattle shipping season, that hurts our state. Not having Department of Transportation employees overseeing our highways, our bridges, our airways, our road construction efforts. All those things are hurting every state. So this shutdown is not a good thing, and that's why we don't want it to continue. That's why we voted. That's why we've now voted 8 times to reopen the government, and we've not been supported by our friends across the aisle.
Yeah, we pushed Democrats on their stance. We've had many of your colleagues on the show, but on this hub specifically, I mean, that is the Trump administration didn't have to make that decision. They decided to pull that $1 billion from your state. Do you disagree with that?
Well, I think the reality is we wouldn't be here if the government was still open. And now we're going on week 3 of a pretty unnecessary shutdown.
Well, actually, Chris Wright, the energy secretary, I asked him about that project specifically, and he said they would have done that even if the government wasn't shut down, that was months in the making even before the government shut down.
Well, it's unfortunate we're still shut down. We shouldn't be.
You stupid, stupid son of a bitch. He said about 5 times, well, maybe the Democrats shouldn't shut down the government. I mean, I'm all for the government being open. Maybe the Democrats should shut down the government. Maybe the Democrats shouldn't have shut down the government. Maybe the Democrats would go and open up the government. Everything will be great. His brain started and stopped at that talking point that he was fed to then go on TV and talk about, with zero knowledge of even his own state and how they're suffering from finally at the back end. Caitlin Collins had to tell him, yo, this administration said no matter whether or not their government shut down or not, they were going to toss you a middle finger. This was screwed from the beginning. He heard that sentence, and he went, it's like 5 seconds of silence. How is it possible that my talking point doesn't make any sense? How is it possible that everything that I'm saying is actually screwing myself over? Because they said we don't care about that government shutdown, bro. We're screwing you over. Now go tell this talking point and get on TV and make a complete ass of yourself. Fucking idiots. Democrat projects. Don't let them get away with the lies. In case you haven't heard the mantra yet, everything they do is based in a lie. Don't listen to them yesterday, don't listen to them today, and definitely don't listen to them tomorrow. Because tomorrow, they're going to lie again. It's all they do. It's all they do. And dumbass Tim Sheehy bought it. Now he's holding on to it. The worst part is it's not going to be enough of a light bulb to go off in his head to be like, maybe I should stop following behind this guy's ass. It's not going to be enough. Okay. I really wanted to flesh that one out. I really wanted to flesh that one out. Probably not going to get tons of views because no one cares about these folks. That's why they're doing it. No one cares about these projects. No one cares about these indigenous folks. No one cares about the death and destruction of this country. All they care about is finding some new way to argue and have a debate on TV that leads to nothing. I love the stuff that Adam Mockler was doing on that debate stage, but what is it leading to? I love the stuff that he was saying. It's not going anywhere. Actionable change is not happening based off of winning debates. Okay. So if you guys care, promote that one. That video is going up later. I'm going to cut all these down. These will be there. If you guys like what we're doing, hit the like button, hit that share button on all these things. Also subscribe. Let folks know, because I'm not sure many people are talking about it. Have fun over there on the damage report. Those of you that hung on, I appreciate you. I really hope that it was worth it, because I think it was. We'll see you guys tomorrow for a Friday. Have your adult beverages ready, because I think we're going to need it this week. I'm a little bit tired. We'll see you guys then. Tell John I say hey. See you, Ma.